那个东方大学钟代江教授，跟这个中正大学包建华教授，还有师大的这个刘成佑教授。好，那么请各位同学先自我介绍一下，从这个 reporter 开始。
Hello, this is Hugh Narrow, and I'm the captain 陈一凯，以及学委本地群张一豪，这是主持好，and this is 同学们 ，Thank you.
Hello, good jury and fellow competitors. I'm the captain from Team Galileo, and this is 郭宇恩、高伟君、林学耀 and 蔡仁宝。
Hello, we are team member from Team Academy, and 我是吴正业、陈佑啊、刘佑伦、陈金甲、徐佑成。
Thank you. Great. So, let's start with please the opponent please raise your question. Turn to the reporter.
We'd like to challenge problem number 4, colored line.
Number 12.
Number 4, colored line.
Number 4.
We object the number 4.
Accept or you reject?
Accept.
Okay. Number 4 is accepted.
I'm the team narrow and I'm New Asian, and I'm going to present the color line. So this is at first is a problem statement. When the contact is or DVD is illuminated with light coming from the filament lamp in such a way that only rays with large angles of incidence are selected. A clear green line can be observed. So the color varies upon slightly changing an angle of the disc, and I will extend and investigate this and my main focus will on the screen. And this is my first theory. The theory is talking about CIE. This is illumination combination, and it mentioned about the RGB color is made of 3 different light. It is red, green, and blue, and they premieres at the third wavelength of 7 nanometer and 550 nanometer and 430 millimeter. And so through the theory, we can understand that RGB can represent the complete composition ratio of the 3 different wavelengths of the light. And so here is a CIE and the International Convention of Illumination. So this is their photo, and they define that the red light, green light, and blue light will made of the RGB code. So that is another theory. It is talking about the CD structure. And CD is made of plastic at the bottom, and there are some pads in it. And on the pads, it is aluminum layer. And this is the last theory. This is talking about how the light has the interference and the reflect on the disc. So there are destructive interference and constructive interference, and this is a main reason that makes the color as a different. There are different color on disc. So this is my experimental theory. So in a view of changing factor of the conscious current subject requirement, our experiment mainly observed the change of the green line by changing the incident angle of the light. So continuing from the content on the previous page, since our experiment only discussed the changing the angle of the light, but the groups in the disk and the wavelength of the light source itself will affect the experimental result. So we will control this variable within the fixed image. So this is the experimental variable. I will number the disk gates, and there are differences between CDs and DVDs. I will try to find it and observe the change from the fixed angle and to find the difference. So this is the experimental device, and you can see here is a box. So at first, I will put the disk placement in it, and here's light source. I will turn it on and start to move it, and I move it. This is theta angle. So if the theta angle is getting bigger, and then I will watch when the green light will show up and when is the degree is. So this is my experimental field, and you can see here is the degree I try to define it, and after I finish the experiment, then I will use this app. The app is color depth, and it will help me to mention the colors, which color is mentioned as green, and it will give me the color code. Then I will know how it's made of the different green color. So here is my experimental data. As first, I will explain. There is a red number, and that means there is no any green color on the disk. And if I mention and I mark the number as green, there are more than one green color on the disk. So you can see that. And then I get the number code color code on the color, and I mentioned it as this. And so there you can see they are all green. Yep. And then there is a DVD list data. And then I also mark the number of bits. Okay. And then you can see here to 0 to 14 degrees. There are more green colors showed up and that CD has. And then at the 80 to 90 you can see there CD has green line here, but DVD is not. So there are also I mentioned a color on it. And some of them are different from the CD has. And their RGB code, some RGB code there are lower than other green color. And to sum up of these defaulted data, and I made two graphics. The coordinated axis X is the degree, and the Y is kinds of the color. And you can see here in 50 to 60 degrees, there are, and 90 degrees, there are most of the green color shown up on the CD. And to saw a DVD, there in the 10 to 30 degrees, there are most of the green color shown up here. But there also shows up at 60 to 70 degrees. But in 80 to 90, there is no any green color shown up on the DVD. And if you take a look, here is it also get rise and down and rise. And here is the same as DVD, it gets rise, and then get down, and then gets rise again. So here's my conclusion. First, most of the shades appear at 90 degrees on the CD. And the second, on the DVD, most shades appear between 10 to 30 degrees. And at the last one, although the peak and the bottom appear in a different angle, you can tell the similar pattern between the two media, just like this. Okay, so this is the end of my presentation.
Okay. Your comment?
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and I have a few questions about your report. First, can you please turn to page 3? Okay, so here you have shown a graph which the horizontal axis is the wavelength. So can you tell me what stands for the vertical axis?
The CIE didn't really mention what is that, but I guess in my view, maybe I think I thought that is there have some that.
Okay, I think we will leave this in part of your discussion. Please turn to page 6. So here is your main focus here, the interference or reflection and refraction of the light.
Yeah, the refraction.
Okay, so this graph here, you basically show the refraction and reflection of the light. Yes. Yes. Thank you. And now please turn to page 11. Okay. So here, are these your observations?
Yes.
Based on your experience, so can you define a light that you observed as from the same suggest?
Okay. As you can see, I use so first I turn on the light and I start open the light source, and then the light in here will get changed.
No, I mean what is a line?
The light is a
Line. L-I-N-E. You have to observe the line.
Yeah. But here you can see if I use this light source and actually it's getting too close to the head.
We'll leave that to our later discussion. So please turn to page 10. Yes. Is this where you place your CD?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman, time's up.
Okay. The opponent, that's your preparation time.
Yes.
Opponent, please take the floor.
Honorable jury and fellow competitors, I'm the opponent from Team Galileo, and today I will oppose question 4, colored line. And this is the problem statements. And we believe that the main focus on this investigation should focus on the problem statement that only large angles of incidence are selected. And also, we think that the reason why only a line should be observed should be focused. And in the main focus of the reporter's presentation, he basically focused on the existence of a green light, which is also rather significant in this problem statements. And this is the outline of the reporter's report. For the theory, he used the RGB wavelengths from the opponent's opinion, he tried to use this to say that different colors are a combination of these three basic colors. And also, he explains the CD structure, which we may lead to our later discussion. And also, he shows the conception of the interference. However, in his experiments, he did not adopt this concept into his experiments, since he mentioned it in his theoretical derivation. And for the experiments, he had a boxed light source and this to create the circumstances provided in the problem statements. And for the parameter, he changes the incidence angle, and he also observed the different colors, and he also observed and analyzed different colors. However, the analysis was also qualitative. And the other one, he tested the differences between CD and DVDs, which is rather significant because CD and DVD, they have different hash structures. And for the analysis, he used a color name for explaining different color. And and he also divided green into different families. And for his conclusion, he stated that between 10 to 30 degrees, DVD both shades can be seen, and at 90 degrees, CD both shades can be seen. And here are the pros and cons for the reporter. For the good parts, first of all, he has proper experimental setup, and he has an app to analyze the color. And he also showed the results of CD and DVD, which may lead to further investigation, which is rather significant. And also he had their presentation. However, for the suggestions, first of all, he only tested the parameter of difference incidence angle. And we believe that maybe he should also change the angle of the disc to test the effects caused by small angles, not only the large angles he demonstrated. And also, further investigation can be made. For example, the reporter did not explain why only a line can be observed. And also, there wasn't much data analysis behind the results. And also, there weren't quantitative theories, since there wasn't many equations as he showed. And also, we believe that the reporter can show more graphs in his report, not just the words. So here will basically be the outline of our later discussion. And this is the theory parts, and this, yes. And for the phenomena, we'd like to discuss the angle of incidence and why a straight line can be observed. And for the theory parts, we'd like to focus on the points of diffraction grating, which he mentioned a similar structure in his page 5 of the presentation, and he did not mention this now, but we will focus on this on our later discussion. And next parts would be the experiments parts, which we haven't done yet. And I'd like to start my discussion with the reporter now. Can you project your presentation? Okay. So please go to the problem statements. Okay. So here, the problem statement stated that a filament lamp is in such a way that only rays with large angles of incidence are selected. So can you tell me what is your understanding behind these words? Only large angles of incidence can be selected.
The large angle really means values.
Yes, please.
So the large angle means if I put the microscope here. Okay, so the large angle means
Yes. Okay. So in my opinion, the problem statement stated that only large angles of incidence can be selected. And I think the main focus is that let's consider that the theta here is extremely large. So when the light source is here and the incidence, like here, the theta here, it is almost equals to 90 degrees. So that all direction of the incidence can be viewed as the incidence in the same direction. Yes. So I think that's the reason, because if this theta is not big enough, let's say if it's only 60 degrees, then this is your structure of your CD disk. So when light incidence in this way, it has an incidence angle. And when the incidence is this way, it has another angle. So which means it is probably the reason why you can observe different colors in the same line, is because of the difference in the incidence angle. And now please turn to page. Okay, so please turn to page 5. Okay. So here you mentioned the structure of the CD, and can you briefly explain the structure?
So as you can see, there's this, and then there's a group in here, and maybe we could we swap the light source in it. It will different from it because the group of it is similarly like the light wavelength.
So do you mean it's due to the optical path difference? Yes. Okay. So here is your structure of the CD, and can you can you draw a similar structure on the CD? Like how does this structure distribute on the CD?
Because the groups will look like,
Okay.
and then if you swap light on it,
Like this. you can actually explain with this manner that why you can only observe a straight line. Because as you mentioned in the on the last or next page, you mentioned that the concept of the diffraction rating of interference. Yes. So when here we have, and as I was asked, have you ever heard the name diffraction rating? Yes, diffraction rating. So diffraction rate and can you explain what diffraction rating is? So from my understanding, diffraction rating is a periodic structure where lights they can when they incidence to their structure, they can interfere with each other. So the point here is the periodic structure. So when as you stated that this is the structure of the CD. So when only this part of the CD is considered, then the structure here it can be seen as a periodic structure. Since it also repeats when it's through a diameter. But however, when we select a different segment, the structure will become like this, which is no longer a periodic structure. So which means that when light goes onto this, its direction of refraction it goes everywhere else. So I think that's the reason when we observe a line, a green line here. Now please turn to page 16. So on your page 16, can you briefly explain why how these experimental results stand for?
The RGB meaning is different made of the line, and there you can see there are a number of different, so that means there are maybe 16 and 2, 100 and 157. So they are made of 3 different numbers, and then they are making them. So, but if I want to please
my question is, since here you don't see, you cannot see an obvious green line in your experience, so I'd like to explain how did you interpret these results and how did you analyze the data?
So as you can see, there's no green line. This is the first fault. This is the first experiment. So I guess it is maybe the light source is too longer as the disk, so it can be observed the green light on it, and maybe here is a light source on it. Maybe also get back the result of the experiment.
So here, I think the main reason is that because the incidence angle that we presented as shown in the page 10. Yes, as shown in this graph, the angle of incidence, if we consider that your face is being placed here, the angle of incidence, it has a difference with the incidence from here and to here. The angle is different. So I think that is the reason why you have different colors and why only a part of the area will be observed. Okay. So now can we turn to page 16. So here I have a question about the data. It seems that the number of different shades on the CD, but why does it disappear when it comes to 750?
I guess you can find that is rise. So maybe here, maybe it is because of the light source reflecting, so as it made my data is big. In the another hand, well, I will guess there is there is the first interference and the second interference.
So So here, obviously the results of CD and DVD are different. So how do you explain the difference between the CD and DVD? What is the main reason that causes the difference?
Yes, maybe it's because of the groups between it are different. So maybe
Can you repeat that?
the group between the group in the CD and group in the DVD.
Okay, so I'm sorry, can you explain what group is?
The group is that. So they are different. The DVD is much closer related.
And
And,
okay.
And so CD, CD's like a slight spot on it, the color will getting white, and the DVD will get golden. So maybe because of this, you can see more color on it.
Okay. So my one last question on this discussion is the light you use. And can you can you tell me what kind of light you use in your experience?
Okay, just like the carbon statements say that, and I use the filament.
So was it dark when you conduct the experience?
Yes, I will.
And so now will you please turn back to page 18? Yes. So here, in your conclusion, you said that most of the shades appear at 90 degrees on CD. So can you say again what is your definition of shades?
Because of the, as you can see here.
So this is your definition of shades.
Yes.
Morgan, please summarize. Next question.
Okay. So during this discussion, we had discussed about the theory, and we also have moved on to the discussion of the diffraction rating, and we might come up with an explanation why only a green line can be observed. And also, as the problem statement stated, only the large angle of incidence can be selected, but in the experimental setup in the reported reports, we can obviously see that the angle of incidence is not large, is not large enough, and maybe we can use that to explain why why there are many colors on a single line, or not a clear line can be observed. And also for the experimental data, for the example of CD, the data suddenly disappears at the angle of 70, and the opponent thinks that there should be a further explanation for that effect.
Okay. Reviewer.
Could you please turn your PPT to page 17? Okay. So can you please explain why there's a gap when you turn your CW to 7?
I guess it's most because of the light source I use is affect the disc, the color show off, because when I observe the disc and the light source, it is also reflect the white light on the disc. So
Thank you. Kona, what's your opinion on this study?
Well, I think that maybe the data of the experimental results was mishandled that causes the data to disappear.
As a reviewer, we think that it's because of lack of experiment. Next time he could try to do this experiment multiple times and try to make an average to make another graph. Okay, can you please turn to page 10? So in your experiment setup, page 10. In your experiment setup, when you change the angle, you also change the distance between the light and the disk. Does this affect your experiment results? Okay. Opponent, do you think that the distance between the light and the disk should be a controlled variable?
Well, yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Opponent, can you please explain the difference between the result of the CD and DVD?
Can you say that again?
Okay, can you please explain the difference of the results?
Okay, as we mentioned in our discussion, that we believe the main difference, also the difference in CD and DVD, is the distance of the digits. Yes, the difference in the groups.
Okay. Can I use the?
Sure.
Okay, so in your reporter, in your experiment setup, your disk is right here. And is for your theta, did you calculate this? Use this one. Okay, so but for the incident angle, the incident angle should be here. So can you please explain the difference between would you improve your graph by calculating this, or this would be better?
And that's your that's an it is so but it is because at first I got a home and I use this as my C diagram. But in the true use is this as the diagram.
Okay, hands up. Reviewer, you have 2 minutes to prepare your presentation.
Today we're going to be reviewing colored lights. So in this discussion, we believe that there are 4 tasks that should be explored. Firstly, is to construct a reliable experimental setup with reproducible results. Secondly, is to clearly explain the phenomenon. Thirdly, is to create a successful theory examining how the angle and the spacing of the disk affect the phenomenon we observe. And fourthly, is to investigate the effects of the important parameters and experimentally verify how they affect on the phenomenon. So we think that the opponent did a partial fulfillment of this discussion because there are parameters and control variables extensions possible. And for the theoretical analysis, they talked about the color matching function that light is destructively inverted, and they mainly observed the angle and they talked about the difference between DVD and CD. And for their experimental confirmation, they talked about that CD has a green light at large angles, and DVD has green light at small angles, and similar patterns between 2 medium. And next, about the merits and possible next steps of the reporter. So for their theory, they had detailed explanation and good theoretical considerations, but they could improve the qualitative explanation of their phenomenon, since there are no qualitative explanation and they did not define what drives the phenomenon. And for their experiment, they had sufficient experimental data, but they could improve on the linkage of their theory and their experiment. And for their structure, they had good diagrams and animations. Therefore, it was a better visualization for the audience. And for the opponents, their merits was that they had clear thoughts and questions and summarized the reporter's presentation well, and they extended discussions on the parameters, for example, the effects of small angles, and they identified merits and flaws of the presentation. Their possible next step would be to investigate whether the length between the light and the disk should be controlled. Next to the discussion analysis. So the opponent raised that the problem statement says that there is only a large angle of incident that are selected, and the reporter's response was that large angles with the base. Okay, moving on to the next one. So the opponent raised that large angles should be nearly 90 degrees, and they don't see why why they don't observe the phenomenon, and there was no accurate response from the reporter. And the opponent raised that this phenomenon can only be observed fine because of the disk structure, and the reporter's response was not very clear. And for the opponent also raised that also talked about to observe different colors because the light angle is different at different places, but the reporter's response was not that clear also. And for our question, the opponent raised that the data was mishandled, and the reporter's response was the light source, the problem of the light source. But we disagree with the reporter because we think that is because of the lack of experiment. And our question is that the most important question is that we think that the distance between the light and the disk should be a control variable, but we don't see any kind of discussion and improvements of this controlled variable.
Okay. Any remarks for the reporter?
So I have more discussion about the angle of the incidence I need to get. And I need to more focus on the strap line and dot idea. So, and I repeat the experiment more time, but I didn't repeat the experiment more time, and I need to keep on stress more about the theory, and I need to understand more about the problem that I need to understand it.
Okay. So,
And then the finish.
sorry. Okay. Question from Joe?
Okay, I want to ask a question too. Start from the problem. And did you see clear green line? I mean, a single green line. Did you see that in your experiment? I think the reporter maybe say, I want to ask the opponent and the reviewer. Have you seen that? And any difference between CD and DVD?
So from
Have you seen that? Did you see
From
a
the-
single clear green line?
from the experiment of
Yes,
the
from your
experiment.
experiment.
No, I did
No?
not see that either.
How about reviewer?
We did observe that phenomenon.
You above, no single green line. Very clear, only see the green.
Oh, I think there's also other colors on the disk, so it's not only this.
Okay. How about the difference between the DVD and the CD?
I guess there's just their group in interact their how they make interference. So just because of the difference of the group, so the interference are getting different, and we may see the different color at the same.
Do you see the difference between the CD and the DVD? For this problem.
Do we see the distance between? No, I
No.
don't think we can see that.
How about reviewer?
Okay, And so for their result, we think that you need a larger incident angle to see the same colors than the DB. So the CD needs more.
Similar or different?
Okay, you need a larger incident angle for the CD to have the same color as the DB.
Okay, so please mark score. Okay. For the reporter, 3, 5, 5, 4, 4. For the opponent, 6, 7, 6, 5, 7. And for the reviewer, 6, 7, 7, 5, and 7. Okay, so let's conclude this stage. Take a break. The reporter.
We would like to challenge question number 9, oscillating screw.
Question number 9.
那个没有关上，因为那个刘老师他跟我说，你会打到好像。
like to accept the challenge?
Okay. So question number 9 is accepted.
我去写那个，我去写。
好，谢谢。
going to report the problem number 9, oscillating screw. And the problem statement states that when placed on the side of the rim and released, a screw may experience screwing oscillations as it travels down the rim. Investigate how the motions of the screw, as well as the groups of these oscillations against some relevant parameters. And the reporter will mainly focus on why they are doing oscillations and how the relevant parameter affects the oscillations. And for the phenomenon, first I would like to talk about why there are oscillations. If you place a screw on an inclined rim, it will perform oscillations like this. And I will simplify this screw as a rod and a hat. Each of them has a different radius. So according to the V equals omega r, with the same angular velocity, the tangential velocity is proportional to radius. So that the hat part will goes down faster and cause the oscillations. So in conclusion, we can say that the oscillations is caused by the tangential velocity difference. And now I would like to introduce the different oscillations that the screw can perform on the rim. And if the inclined angle is small, the screws will perform decaying oscillations. And when the inclined angle reaches a certain angle, which I call it the critical angle, the oscillations will start to group. So we can observe that with different inclined angles, the oscillations will be different. And for the theoretical model, first I will define my ideal model. I assume that the screw consists of the rod and the hat. And I define two rotation axes, which one is in this axis. One is in this axis, which pass through the center of the hat and the rod, and another is along the z-axis, which pass through the center of mass. And this is my force analysis. We can see that the component of gravity will act on the center of mass, and they are normal force that are provided by the contact point and the frictions that cause the rotations. And by listing all the forces that affect the motions, we can write down the degrees of freedom, which will be the positions and the rotating angle. And since the screw will rotate, so we need to calculate the moment of inertia. And first is along this axis, we assume that the formula of moment of inertia will be the cylinder's z-axis form. So which will be the mr squared over 2. And another axis will be the z-axis, and we use parallel axis theorem to get the moment of inertia. And since the rod's radius cannot be ignored, so we add this item into the formula. And we talk about the normal force. So we define the tip part as the pivot, and by analyzing the total force and the torque, we can get the value of the normal force. And if there are no flicking happens, the normal force should be a constant. And now is the analysis of the frictions. And in this part, we define the frictions as the kinetic frictions, since the contact point will not be still. It will slide during the motion. So, and the directions of the kinetic frictions will be opposite to the velocity directions. So we define S as the direction vector of the center of mass, and differentiate with respect to it, so we can get the velocity vector. And for the tip part and the hat part, we translate the vector from center of mass and consider the extra tangential velocity caused by the rotations. Since the hat part will rotate faster, has a bigger tangential velocity, which I've mentioned in the phenomenon. And so, because that the directions is because we get the directions, so the frictions can be derived. And after the calculations, we can get the equation of motion by Newton's second law. And for the displacements, we consider the gravity of the x-axis and the components of frictions for both x and y-axis. And for the rotations, we consider the different the frictions that cause each rotation. And I would like to talk about the energy transform. We can see that the gravity provides the potential energy for the whole motions, include the sliding and the rotation. And the frictions is responsible for the energy decay. However, in this case, we can predict the total path. We can predict the total path to calculate the frictions. So we can predict the motions by this way. So we decided to solve the equation of motions numerically with Python. But we can still use the energy transform concept to explain why there are Brownian oscillations. If the gravitational potential energy is smaller than the total energy decays caused by the frictions, the oscillations will decay. And in contrast, if the gravitational potential energy is big enough, the oscillations will start to grow. And now move on to the experiment part. First is the experiment setup. I use protractor for adjusting the incline angle, and I put the board on the protractor to create the ramp, and a tripod for recording. And these are the dimensions of screw I use in the experiments. And for the measurements of the delta z, I use tracker to get the coordinates of the head arm and the tip arm, reduce them, and use arctangents to get the value of delta z. And for measuring the kinetic frictions, I tie two screws together to make sure that there are no extra oscillations, and that is slide down from the rim and get the PT graph and calculate its slope as the accelerations, and plug in the formula to get the new table. And now I would like to talk about the experiments I changed the incline angle. And I will use the delta D graph to describe the different types of oscillations. And now let's look at the cases that the oscillations will decay. In the experiments, our initial angle will be the 90 degrees. And as for the incline angle from 3 degrees to 14 degrees, the oscillations will just decay and finally come to end. And we run the simulations to compare with the theoretical model. We found that it mainly agree with our result, but still have the roughly 2 degrees difference. And for the Brownian oscillations, we found out that if the incline angle reach to the critical angle within the experiment, which is the 15 to 16 degrees, the oscillation will start to grow. And if we keep adding the incline angle, the oscillations will grow more faster, and finally it will start to spin like this. The angle will just keep adding. And to explain this, as the incline angle increases, the potential energy will also increase, so that it will cause the oscillations group. And the next experiment is I changed the length of the screw, and I also used the delta T graph to describe the different types of oscillations. And in the result, we can see that as the length of the screw increase, the oscillations will decrease. And that's because of as the length increase, the moment of inertia along the z-axis will also increase, which we can see in this formula. And since the torque provided by gravity is a constant, as the increase, as the momentary inertia increase, the oscillating angle will increase. And for the next experiments, I changed the friction coefficients, which means I changed the different rank. And we can also see that there is a significant effects on the different types of oscillations if we change the frictions. And we can see that if the friction coefficient of frictions increase, the types of oscillation, the amounts of oscillations will increase. And I would like to conclude my presentations. At first, as the inclined angle increase, the oscillations will improve because of the gravitational potentials, and we run the simulations and find that it agrees with our experiment. And as the length of the screw increase, since the total torque caused by the gravity in the same inclined angle, the total torque caused by the gravity would remain the same. So as the moment of inertia increase, the oscillation angle will decrease. And as the friction coefficient increase, the oscillation will decrease, since it will is part of the equation motion that consists of the whole motion. And that's all my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Your comment?
Alright, so first I would like you to move to page 15. Wait, 14. Yeah, wait, the next one. Yeah, this one. Yeah, on the bottom video we can see that the screw is sliding on the surface. Like, can you explain why it slides?
Why it slides?
Yeah.
Do you mean that it will slide from this place to this place, not going the straight line?
Yeah.
I would say that it's because of the uneven frictions on the ramp, which causes this effect.
So well, does sliding affect your result?
Since our result is talking about the angle which I showed as the theta z, so the sliding will not affect the whole result that significantly.
Okay. Can you move to page 29, please? Now, on the first chart, we can see a high peak at the beginning. Can you explain the peak?
The high peak in the beginning.
Yes.
That is the part of oscillations, and for this is because it start to spin, so the angle will keep decreasing.
Okay.
Well, then you have 3 minutes to prepare your data. Okay. Okay, opponent, please take the floor.
Hello, judges and fellow observers. My name is Wu, and I'm going to be a opponent of the problem of the screw. The problem statement of this screw is the problem is that the main focus of this problem is how the ramp will influence the oscillation and the growth of the oscillation of the screw and the ramp parameters. So in the reporter's presentation, they first observed different angles for different results. Then they did in the series they did a first analysis and an energy analysis of the screw to and finally in the data analysis they used different friction coefficients and incline angles and different kind of nails to discuss. And in the presentation of the reporter, they have in the series they have a detailed explanation and they have a qualitative explanation of the phenomenon. Some of the problems that are not really that much of the deviations that is investigated inside the series. And in the experiment, they have a stable and robust experiment. Instead of them varies some of the key parameters, and they also have sufficient experimental data and experimental verification. But finally at the structure of the presentation, they have good diagrams and animations. And so this is some of the questions I would like to discuss later. And first is whether the thickness of the head of the screw will interfere with your result of the experiment. And second is how the inclination of the slope and the friction of the slope will. And finally is the weight distribution of the screw and whether will that be a factor of your experiment. So, and I think that's it. So first I would like to ask you about the thickness of the head of the screw, because in your experiment all the head of the screws are the same thickness and have the same width. So would that be a large factor of the experiment?
Can you define your thickness of the head?
Like
different thickness,
different
dimensions.
Different the width of the head of the screw.
The width of the head. The radius or
The
length.
The length.
I think that if we increase the length of the head, the mass will also increase. So that will affect the whole motion.
Speaking of the mass, how do you think the different distribution between the mass of the screw, like more weight at the head or more weight at the tip, like how would it affect your result of the experiment?
Since our result is talking about the oscillations, and what I use to explain the oscillations is the different tangential velocity, and for the different contribution of the mass, we think that if we don't consider the frictions, which means there is no rotation, we just put it on the ramp and release. You will like a free fall.
So
in that.
sorry, I don't think you answered that question.
Okay, I will answer the question better than say. So if we drop the screw like in a free fall form, the screw will not oscillate. So I think the mass of the head didn't affect the oscillation. The oscillation is affected by the different tangential velocity.
So you think the mass distribution will affect the result of your experiment?
I didn't think so.
Okay.
You know, here we are.
So how like do you think that if you put the screw at a different position will affect your result? Like if you put the tip first down facing toward the slope, will it affect your result?
Yes, it will affect since that the initial angle of the theta t I showed will be different, so that it will affect the initial terms that is like that.
So it will affect the oscillations for the later motion.
So how much of an effect would it be?
Since I didn't do the experience to.
And then how much of an effect would it be? Do you think it would be?
It's hard to say because I didn't do the experience, but I think that if we that has put on the top and release it, it will have a greater oscillations.
So next I want to talk about the friction of the slope, because in the presentation you have said that you did different frictions, but you haven't really explained that much about how it acts on slopes with different frictions. So can you explain that?
For that, in my experience, I changed the different coefficient of frictions, and that will just change the value of the frictions. And in this situation, the frictions plays a very important and complex role on the whole oscillations, because its directions will change will change over time, change along the rolling. And for this, I can calculate the total frictions by consider the directions of it. So I will choose to just change the value of this and see what happens. And what I found out is that in the same inclined angle, if we use more bigger coefficient of friction, these oscillations will be the amounts of oscillations will be more than the smaller coefficient of frictions.
Okay, so also about it's also about the length of the entire screw. Can you explain deeper how the length of the screw will affect your result? Because same as the friction, I didn't really see a detailed explanation of how it would affect the result.
And for that, since the length will affect the moment of inertia, and the moment of inertia will affect the rotation significantly, so that as the length of the screw increase, the moments of inertia will also increase, so that oscillations will decrease. The oscillations will, if we use larger length of the screw, the oscillations it will be harder to get great oscillation.
Do you think the phenomena you observe is just a part of the phenomena? It's just a part of the phenomena, or if it is able to be continuous, continue on in the same behavior? If you lengthen the platform to a longer length, will the phenomenon continue to be the same phenomenon observed?
Okay, I think that if the screws oscillations will decrease decrease over time, it will be nothing to do with the length of the ring. It will not affect. But if the oscillations will improve over time, it will not stop. So if we adding the length of the ring, it will start to these oscillations will grow more bigger and then start to spin. That's because when we add the length of the ring, we also adding the gravitational potential.
What is your releasing method of a screw?
Can you define the releasing
Like
method?
how you put a screw on top of the slot?
Oh, I use a ruler to release it. Is that answer your question?
Okay. So, okay, I would also like to ask about the angle of the slot, because in your experiment you stop your experiment at a 30 degrees angle. Why did you decide not to continue down on a larger angle?
That's because in a very large angle, the screws will slide out too fast. So we can see the because our ramp isn't long enough to see the purely motion. So I decided not to do the larger incline angle.
Back to your releasing method part. Since you say you release it from a ruler, it could possibly spin the screw when you lift the ruler. It could attach to the screw and spin it. Would that affect the result of your experiment?
I make sure that it didn't spin as I for the ruler. If it was spin, it will be easy to observe, and I didn't observe spin.
How did you? Okay, so can you repeat that again? How did you make sure it did not spin or get interfered by the ruler?
I use a very smooth ruler that made by the Echo.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, I think that's all.
Okay. Please summarize the discussion.
So in the discussion, we discussed about how the thickness of the head of the screw could possibly interfere with the experiment, and about how the angle and the friction of the slope and then we have also in-depth discussion about the experimental setup of the recorder. And also we discussed about some of the questions like if the phenomenon is able to continue on, or how the screw is distributed on the top of the slope.
Okay. Mueller?
So you just you increase the length to observe how it affects the oscillation, right? And you also said the mass will not influence the effect of the results.
The distribution of mass.
The screw's mass.
Do you ask me what is the mass will?
The screw's mass will it influence the results?
It will also affects the moments of inertia.
And if you increase the length, will the mass also increase?
Since we are talking about the moments of inertia, so if we add the length of screw, the mass.
Okay, what do you think about expression?
We see that the mass is a important factor in this experiment.
Okay, and have you discussed the height that you drop the screw?
The height.
Yeah.
Describe the height. I use a 1 meter long ring. I put it on the
And have you observed something like 50 centimeters, or you just observe 1 meter?
In the 90 centimeters of the ring.
What do you think?
Like, I'm sorry, like, could you define the height? Because I don't understand.
And use the board?
Yeah.
It is a surface, and you put it there. And you put it there or there. To try there.
And the distance between
well, you just put it there. And if you put it there, will it influence the result?
you fix on the gravitational potential.
Oh, so have you showed the ring?
No, I didn't do that.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so what do you think?
We believe that it won't have a big difference on the result.
You won't have to.
We believe that it's like if you put it lower, it's the phenomenon will be observed less, but the initial phenomenon
And
will
you said the friction influence and the gravity influence the movement. We have other forces like stress, friction. I'm not sure. I'm just.
I think the forces that affects these motions will be the kinetic frictions and the gravity.
Oh, and
we also think it's mainly the friction and gravity that affect this motion.
so the stress friction is not a parameter discussed.
The friction is a impermanent.
Stress friction.
What?
Stress friction.
Okay, that's out.
Okay.
Okay, the reviewer, please take the floor.
Okay, this is a review on the nice oscillating screw, and this is C9 and here's the problem statement. It says that when placed on each side on a ramp and released, a screw may experience growing oscillation as it travels down the ramp. And it investigates how the motion of the screw as well as the growth of these oscillations depend on the relevant parameters. And here's the performance of the reporter. Their theory has well connection with the experiment, and when it comes to the experiment, they their experiment is quite repeatable, and about the conclusion, it can explain the problem well. The pros, they have well understanding of the question, and good time management, and they have good use of media. They showed us several videos and photos, so that we can understand it more clearly. However, they did not discuss about the mass of screw, and if the length increase, if the length of the screw increase, the mass may also increase. And I think they should have a more clear explanation of the phenomena. And for performance of the opponent, they also have good understanding at the question and have well discussion with the reporter. However, they did not point out the problem of this experiment, and they did not discuss how other parameters might also influence the results of the experiment. Here's the discussion topic. They first talk about the angle of the surface, and they say how do they put larger angles above, and the reporter explains that too large angles of the screw move too fast to observe. In my opinion, in the reviewer's opinion, the reporter can try to observe it with some more precise digital equipment to see if it has other influence to the oscillation. And they also talk about the mass of the screw. And the reporter replied that the mass would influence the gravity. And I think they should show some more data to see if the gravity has shown other influence to the experiment. And then they talk about the friction to slope. And the reporter explained the friction well, but they cannot calculate a precise number of it. And this, in my opinion, this shows that the reporter has a quite understanding at their theory, but I think they can also find some more theory to see if they can calculate the number. And as the last part, they put at different positions of the surface, and the reporting pattern is influenced the initial term. And in my opinion, the experimental results of the reporter is quite clear, but it's something that can have some more discussion. Here's the point is, they didn't talk about the height of the screw, and they didn't observe that if the length of the screw increase, the weight of the screw might also increase. And they did not discuss the influence of stress friction. They may also observe. This is the end of my report. Thank you for listening.
Reporter?
Okay, I want to thank the reporter and the opponent and the reviewer to have such a pleasant discussions with me. And I want to conclude my discussion. And for the fixing point that I think more parameters can be conducted in my presentations. But in the discussions, I hope that the opponent and the reviewer can talk more about the parameter I've done in the experience. And I think more simulations can be done to compare with my experience. And the data analysis can be more clear. And for the discussion revisits, first we'll talk about the different mass distributions, which I think it will not affect the oscillations. And for the reviewer, asks about if we add the length of the screw, the mass will also increase. And I want to answer that since the moments of inertia the mass and the length will both affect the moments of inertia. But if we add the length, the mass increase. The mass increase, which will represent the gravitational potential, will increase. But in the result, the length increase, the oscillation will decrease. So I think the length will have a greater effects than the mass. And I want to clarify the problem about the releasing height. I think that
gravitational potential is a relevant concept. So changing the releasing height will not affect the
time's up.
type of oscillation. Thank you.
Okay. I want to ask a simple question. When you do the school down, did you trace the center mass in the center mass of the circle? No. How do you explain? The center mass. That's
So
the center mass motion.
the central mass motion. I tracked the head and the tip, and for the central mass, I think that it will just be the head will just similar to the head and the tip, but the direction not direction, but the position of it will be different. It's only about this.
How about
We haven't did it on the center of the mass of the screw.
Repeat the problem here.
If we are, I see so I just look at the central mass of the screw. Okay, when you fall down the income, how do you explain? Central mass.
This is a quite interesting question, and I think my opinion is similar to the reporter.
So can you go to the video of your to the video? Yeah. Since one video you can see the screen and oscillation. Yeah, the right side video. You can see the screen can shift from the straight line, right?
Yes.
It seems shift to the left side.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think the shift affects the oscillation amplitude of the? Do you think?
I think will partially affect because if the screw shift to the left, the oscillations to the left will be greater than the less amplitude to oscillate to the
Only the left or right?
the
Right would, I mean, when we push it back to the right, the amplitude will not change or?
I think it will become smaller than if the screws is slide out in a straight line.
So how do you think?
I think that the shifting will influence the result of the experiment.
Why?
Because when they move more to the left, it kind of makes it accelerate a bit more to the left, and that will influence the result of the experiment.
So how do you think?
And the two videos are not the same, so I think the right one should have more discussion, and this part I think I will be more agree with the opponent.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. It's great.
7, 5, 6, 5, 7. 7, 5, 6, 5, 7. For the opponent, 5, 5, 5, 5, 7. 5, 5, 5, 5, 7. And for the reviewer, 5, 4, 6, 6, 7. 5, 4, 6, 6, 7. Okay? So that concludes stage of 5. Yeah, sure.
OK，我只问了一个很简单的问题，你那个 scroll 从斜面上滑下来，这是很当你的，就是这样滑下来啊。好，那现在如果你看一个 object 从斜面上滑下来，应该就是你解过最简单的问题。那现在你放了一个 scroll， 我刚才问说，你看那个升空量是不是还是这个样子？如果是的话，那就是为什么 ？OK， 不是的话，那为什么？因为它现在不是一个 point particle 从斜面上滑下来。好，那这个你看到它会 oscillate 会住，那这个原因是什么 ？OK， 那很明显，摩擦力一定会进来，那进来到底造成了什么原因？那当然还有，我不晓得，其实我本来想再往下问，就是那个你的scroll 这个滑下来，它是静摩擦还是动摩擦？
它应该是动摩擦，它会。
当你很慢的时候，
很慢的时候。
对啊，所以我就要从你的实验来看，因为如果只是纯粹造成旋转的话，你是 pure roll 还是不是 pure roll？ 因为你的螺是在旋转。
单纯旋转的话应该是 pure roll， 但是它单旋转的时候它会
对，可是我看你的 video 有一个图，它会马上来停住，它会对停住这样。来。
Okay, and we can do more discussion if you like over the recess session. Okay, take a break. Okay, your opponent, please raise your question to challenge the reporter.
We actually challenge number 1, strap coaching.
Number 1.
We accept.
Accept. Okay. So the question is, the problem is number 1. So
对，就是我们这条要运行。电脑把那个学成线，因为他说
是这样。
这样没有，因为这个 OK， 这个可以用。就我想需要跟你讲，他周也是嘛。对，还是要给他们就明天规划。OK， 好，地图到时候都要来。OK， 所以到时候线可以放在这里。都放这，都放这。好。
看胶带吗？应该是不用。
Okay, reporter, please take the floor.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to discuss the problem of fractal fingers, and I'm in mathematics. Okay, this is the problem statement. The effect of fractal fingers can be observed if the droplet of an ink alcohol mixture is deposited onto diluted fabric paint. However, the geometry and dynamics of the fingers influenced by rhythmic parameters. And in this experience, we are mainly focused on how does the concentration of the alcohol of the fluid increases the spreading and what causes the fingers. Okay, and this is our outline. So there are 7 points that we are going to discuss. Okay, so now I want to show you an observation. So in this experience, we drop an ink alcohol onto we drop an ink alcohol onto a piece of wooden sheet of a base, and as we can see, there is a circle that keeps expanding in the center, and with several fractal fingers around it. And we saw that the proportion of the ink alcohol may influence the sizes of the circle and the formation of the fractal fingers. And it is the ink alcohol with 1 to 1 ratio, and it is 1 to 2. And let's see the difference between them. Okay, so this is our theory. The first one is Marconi effect. So the theory says that the liquid which have a high surface tension will pull the liquid which have low surface tension strongly. And the presence of the gradient in surface will naturally cause the liquid to flow. So we can look at this picture, and the arrow can show that the direction of the flow of the liquids. And we can see how the liquids flow from the low surface tension to the high surface tension. And there is an experimental demonstration that I want to show you. Okay, so in this video, we prepare 2 plates of liquid. The one is water, and the other is soap solution. And we add some paper onto the water, so we can observe it easier. And we drop the soap solution onto the water. So as we can see, the water pulls the soap solution away, and which means the water have a higher surface tension than the soap solution. So in this experience, we assume that the Arabic paint has a higher surface tension than the ink alcohol. So that is why we can observe a circle in the center of the wooden sheet. And the next theory is segmental instability. Okay, so the theory says that if two different liquids meet each other, if the invading liquid has a lower viscosity, and there will be a kind of perturbation gradually grows, and since it locally reduces the pressure to the other liquids, and they will direct the pressure wave to the further motion. And on the contrary, if the invading liquid has a higher viscosity, the perturbation will decrease since it locally increase the perturbation, and the perturbation will since increase the pressure against it and against the further motion. And the finger behind has a higher average viscosity, so it will move slower. And the finger ahead has a lower average viscosity, so it will move faster. And that is the reason that we can observe the finger to form. And the different proportion of ink and isopropyl alcohol can influence the spreading. And the larger difference between the viscosity and the ink alcohol mixture and the diluted paint, the more significant the fingers will be observed. Okay, so these are experimental setup. So in this experience, we compare two different liquids. The one is ink alcohol and the other is acrylic acid. So we paint the acrylic onto the wooden base, and then we drop the ink alcohol mixture solution with a head of 5 centimeters tall, and the temperature is 20 degrees. And then we observe the formation of the circle and the finger. And the chart is the isopropyl alcohol and ink and acrylic acid viscosity. So ink has a lower viscosity, so that is why it can invade to the acrylic acid, acrylic paint, according to the segmentator instability. Okay, so this is our variables. Our control variables, the first one is the material of the base. And the same model of isopropyl alcohol, ink, and paint. And this experience, we prepare a wooden base for our wooden sheet for our base. And the independent variables is, the first one is the proportion of the ink alcohol mixture, and the other is the proportion of the paint and ink. And the dependent variables is the diameters of the spreading. We use ruler to measure the diameters of the circles, and the visibility of the fractal fingers around the circles. Okay, so this is data analysis. We use rulers to measure the circles, and we found that if the more isopropyl alcohol we added, the larger the circle will be, and the diameter will be longer. And if the more isopropyl alcohol we added, the less significance of the fractal fingers will be. And this is what the different proportion of the water and paint, and it is 1 to 2, and it is 1 to 3. And we can find that if we add more acrylic paint on this, the diameter will be shorter. So what causes the fingers? In this experiment, we thought that if the difference between the viscosity of two fluids is bigger, the fractal fingers will be more significant, and different proportion of the fluid may affect the viscosity. And this is our conclusion. So after the experiment, we found that the first one is the more amount of the isopropyl alcohol we added, the larger circle we can observe, and you will have a longer diameters. And the second is the more amount of the isopropyl alcohol we added, the less amount of ink would expand it. And the other is if the proportion of isopropyl alcohol is larger, the fractal figure will be more significant, and we can observe it more easier. And this is what we want to do in the future. So the first one is to quantify the fractal fingers. the amount of the fingers and the speed of the spreading and the length of the fingers. And we want to measure the viscosity of each fluid, and we want to discuss the relation between the viscosity and the surface tension. And this is our presentation.
Good enough? Okay. Okay. The opponent.
Okay, so don't just show me your experiment again.
Which page?
Yeah, you dropped it. And okay. And how do you define a figure?
Define a figure. We can find that there is something. Okay. So there's a two circle. The one on the outside is the finger, and the inside is we call the circle. Okay.
Okay. And why is there a circle?
I mean
The circle you draw it, and there is a circle.
Okay. According to the magnetic effect, there is a circle because the air tank has a larger surface tension, which means it will pull the ink to the outside. So there will be a circle forming right in the center of the sheet.
Okay, and you just show us one of your experiment, and you just drop it. And have you ensured that the height is the same?
Oh yeah. For the video before, we didn't use ruler because we haven't started our experiment. We just want to ensure that it will spread. But after that we did sequence of experiment, and we all use the rulers to measure that it is 5 centimeters small.
Only you have 3 minutes to prepare your speech.
Okay, this is the opponent for the freckle finger, and this is the test. So dropping. Okay, I think they have job description, so I'll just skip it. And when it comes to the structure of the solar problem, they first show what the phenomenon is, and then they show their experiment, and lastly they conclude the experiment and the theory that also analyze the data. And for the report, they have theoretical model via literature, and simple understandable quantitative explanation of the finger. And they have appropriate use of media. They not only show us the pictures of the finger, but also shows us the video of how their experiment was actually done, so I can understand more about their experiment device. And however, I think they have a lack of explanation of the phenomenon, which will be discussed later. And when it comes to the experiment, they have accurate and reproducible setup, and they have sufficient investigation of the phenomenon, and they have comparison of different variables. And when it comes to test of randomness, they have some parameter comparison, and they have not measured, maybe perhaps the height they drop the ink might also have an influence to the results of the experiment, and I think they need investigation on the circle. And when it comes to the theory, they have relevant modeling of the phenomenon, and their theory is connected with the phenomenon. And however, I think they are unclear how multiplication of theory was actually done. And I think that's all. So when it comes to the point of discussion, in the next 10 minutes, well, I want to figure out how to define the finger more clearly, and I also want to understand more about the surface tension and the height that influence the results of the experiment, and under the density of the ink, and the other things density might also influence the results, and that's it.
Okay. Next page.
Can you just show me your fingers again? Okay. Wait. This is you take it from the theory, and can you show me yours and what you thought? So how do you define finger more precisely, not just the circle?
Define a finger. We can find that there's a little bit like the tree of the branches of the tree. It is like something little bit separated from the outside, and the inside is very dense.
Okay. So all your experiments show that the fingers are not don't have clear color. You mean this? Those are fingers too?
These are fingers, and the circle there is a white line there, and this is the circle that we call that the circle.
Oh. We call it a finger.
Yeah.
So you just show me one of your experimental videos. Can you show me that again? So the ink and the alcohol can have so much influence to the results. And can you explain why?
You mean ink and alcohol?
Yeah. Why? The surface tension. Only the surface tension.
I think the circle is because the American effect, the different tension of the ink alcohol and the average paste. And all the fingers because of the because of the step indicator instability. The different viscosity cause the fingers to form. I think this.
Okay, so you mentioned the Moroccan. Can you explain that to me more clearly?
Explain what?
You just talk about the phenomenon, the theory, whatever.
This is Marconi effect. There are two different liquids, and this is a liquid that has high surface tension and is have low surface tension. And when they meet each other, the low surface tension liquid will flow to the high surface.
So have no surface.
Yes, low surface will be pulled to will be pulled by the high surface tension. So there will be a circle. Because the ink has
the ink has
low surface tension now, and the paint, the acrylic paint has a high surface tension, so it will pull.
And how do you know it's low surface tension?
We didn't.
Just because you drop it and it expands, so you think it's low surface tension?
Yes, according to this theory, but we didn't measure the surface tension.
Oh, then have you measured their density?
Density? No, we did not measure the density.
You did not? Oh, okay. So is that your picture?
No, it's the picture from the internet.
Okay. So, show me your conclusion.
Oh, conclusion.
Larger circle, which means more fractal fingers?
No, the larger circle means we can measure the length of the longer diameters of the circle. The finger is the outside of the circle. You can see the line, the branches of the tree.
So the amount of isopropyl alcohol does not influence the number of the fingers.
Sorry,
You say the more amount of the isopropyl alcohol and larger circle we can observe. That's what you just said.
You say
The first one. So it just shows larger circle. It has no connection with the fingers.
We do this experiment separate two parts. One part is the circle, and the other is the fingers. And the first one is discuss the circle, not the fingers.
Okay. Oh, not Can you explain the number two more clearly?
Okay. So we can see that there's a large amount of ink flow to this surface. But if we add more ink isopropyl alcohol, the ink is just there. It will be smaller.
Okay, so
but the circle will be larger.
You just told me that you define a finger. And have you calculated the number of the fingers?
We just said that in the future we will find some method to calculate like the microscope to just put in a microscope and to observe it.
Oh. So that is done by you, right?
Yes, it's all mine.
Can I point at it? So what is there similar to a round, but there is a single one?
Okay, I think it's because there's a little dump in the surface, and the dump will spoil the circle. So when the circle is spreading, if the surface has a dump there, the circle won't be formed perfectly because there is a dump, little dump.
So that's also because the surface tension.
Surface tension? No, I don't think so. Look, there's a little. I think there is a dot here, so it will be spoil the perfection of the surface. It's not smoothly. When we paint the isopropyl, and when we paint the acrylic, there is a we didn't paint the acrylic very smoothly. The surface is not smooth.
So the surface is not smooth.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So this
Bump. There's a bump here.
there's a pump.
Yeah, and like an obstacle.
Okay. If it's not smooth, it may also influence the results of the.
Yes, also we found a solution. We found an idea from painting workers. So you can look at the wall here. The paint on the wall is very smoothly, right? I think the tool and the way they paint the paint on the wall is very important.
Okay. So you do test it to drop it from different heights.
No, we just drop it from 5 centimeters tall.
Okay. You just drop it from 5 centimeters. Okay. And can you explain that the water?
Okay, this is the viscosity of the three liquids, and it is the ink, and it is the acrylic paint acid, and it is the water. And the Cp is the unit of the viscosity.
Can you explain it more clearly?
Okay, so according to the segmentator is the ability, the low, and if the invading liquids have a low viscosity, they will be invade to the other liquids. So and you can see that the ink has a lower viscosity than the acrylic paint, so it will invade to the acrylic.
So you just test it.
What's that mean?
Can you test it with this?
Oh, it is the we researched through the internet and yeah, there will be
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yes.
Okay. In the last 10 minutes, I got understand how it was actually done, and it says that the surface is not smoothly. There's a bump, so I think that's something they should more careful about. And they also tell us that they didn't try to drop the liquid from different heights. And I think it's also a parameter that worth discussing. And when it comes to the surface tension, he explains it to me quite well, so I can understand that the ink is a high one, and while the other thing is a lower one, and that's it.
Okay, thank you to the reporter and opponent. First question I want to ask the reporter. So you say that Mergon effect is caused by different surface tension. So what causes different surface tension?
What caused the different surface tension?
This brief.
Yeah, I think it's because of
density. It's okay, and opponents.
What causes different surface tension?
Yes.
I think the density.
Density, okay.
Yeah.
And next question I want to ask the opponent. Do you agree that he used segmental instability to explain the fractal?
The fractal.
Do you agree that he used segmental instability? Yes or no? No, okay. And so what do you think is the main reason cause the instability?
Main reason. The different viscosity of the liquid.
And next one to ask, so will Marangoni flow stop and when?
You mean the stop. And if the viscosity reach the balance.
Viscosity. So you think viscosity when they get about the same, Marangoni flow will stop?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And Next on to X, so will the fractal finger, the fractal motion stop? Will it stop?
When the fractal fingers,
Like, will the fractal motion stop?
but you just
Like, will it grow infinitely? It's okay for the opponent.
Can you explain your question?
Will the fractal stop? Like the fractal motion, will it grow over time? Or will it stop?
I think you will stop.
It will stop, okay. And next, because you mentioned the perturbation.
yeah.
So, in this case, will the perturbation increase or decrease?
And in this experiment, I think it will be increased. It will be bigger because the viscosity.
And next I want to ask that, do you think the finger he defined is proper?
I think this is quite interesting.
Like yes or no?
No.
No, okay. And next I want to ask, because you mentioned that density, so will density affect the results?
I'm not sure, but in my opinion, yes.
Yes, and he
I agree with you.
okay. And next I want to ask that, so you measure the diameter of the droplets or fingers? The droplet or fingers?
Droplets.
Droplets, okay. And do you control the temperature in this experiment?
Yeah, 20 degrees.
90 degrees, okay. And next, should the surface be smooth?
Yes.
And what do you see if the surface is not smooth?
I think it will influence the results of the experiment.
Okay. And so, how do you measure the viscosity here?
Mention the viscosity.
Yes.
Oh, you mean why I want to mention this?
No. How do you measure that?
Oh, measured.
Yes.
I just said, this is the
From
data from
Okay.
internet. Yeah.
And the next one to X. Okay.
I stop. Reviewer, please take the floor.
Okay, thank you. And I'm a reporter from Team Galileo. I'm going to review topic number 1, fractal fingers. So this is the problem statement that when you deposit an alcohol mixture onto diluted acrylic paint, then you can see the fractal fingers. So the main focus for the reporter will be how does the concentration of the mixture affect the spreading and what causes the finger. So here's a summary and comments for the reporter that for theory he used segmental instability and Marangoni effects. And for the experiments, he used ink, isopropyl, alcohol, acrylic paint, and a wooden base. For the parameters, he changed the proportion of mixture and diluted acrylic paints. So here's some of my comments for the reporter. He has proper experimental setup representation and single definite theory and comparison for the theoretical value, but some my suggestion will be that he can't define fractal, and also lack of parameters, and also analysis for the experimental results and many parameters not defined, and didn't also show where the picture is cited from. So here's some of my comments for the opponent, as I think he can discuss the experimental method and can verify the definition of finger and revise the difference between ringing and fractal stages. And the suggestion is that maybe he's later focus on fractal and should focus on the main focus on the report. So here's my review for the discussion. First, they discussed why is there a circle between the fractal and diffusion part. Reporters say that the ink was thick in the center, which I think it is because of the surface tension which caused the cohesion. And the second question is that are the releasing heights the same? Reporters say yes, but we didn't use rulers to measure. And I think the approach of measurement should be carefully conducted. And the third question is that how to define fingers. Reporters say it's the extension from the ring, which I think they should further discuss fractal, because since the problem is called fractal fingers. The first question is, can you explain anything? Like the reporter just repeat his presentation, and I think the opponent didn't have sufficient understanding. And the fifth question is, why can you say that certain liquid has low surface tension? Reporters say test if it expands. And I think that's which caused the low surface tension is because of the evaporation of the alcohol in the mixture. And the sixth question is that, and he wanted to explain the graph, and the reporter also repeated his presentation. And according to the reporter, I think fractal is not obvious due to low difference of viscosity. And the seventh question is, why is the inner circle not perfect? It is due to a surface tension. Reporters say no, which I think that different surface tension and unsmooth structure can all affect the result of area distribution. And here's my questions. First is, what caused the different surface tension in Marangoni flow? Both of them say density, which I think that it will be the evaporation of alcohol on the center parts of the mixture and the rim parts of the mixture. The second question is, I asked the opponent, do you agree with segmental instability? He said no, but which I think this instability can be explained in this problem. The third question is, will the fractal finger stop? And reporter has no comment when opponent says it will stop, which I think that fractal wouldn't stop, even because like in small scales we couldn't use naked eye to see that. The first question is, will the perturbation increase? And the reporter said yes. And the fifth question is, do you agree with the definition of finger? Opponent said no, which I think that they should talk about the fractal of the fingers. The sixth question is, did you control temperature? Reporter said 20 degrees, which I think is okay. And how do you measure the viscosity? And reporter said it comes from internet, which I think it should use like a method to really measure that, not from internet. Here's the conclusion. These points will be, they didn't discuss about why it grows like fractal, and the viscosity about the two fluids, why have to add the alcohol into mixture, and also how the reporter defined fractal. So the concept revisits will be the parameters and the experiment setup, data discussion, and the understanding of theories. This is my presentation, thank you.
The reporter will continue with our
So this is our conclusion. The first one is in this case, the promotion of the liquids and experimentally verify how they affected the phenomenon. And the other is the second one is infer and justify how the figures appear. And the opponent says that we should clearly define the figures and where the circle is. And in the future, we want to give a quantitative explanation to the phenomenon in the future. Yeah. The video is a demonstration video, and therefore the height is not calculated. In actual experiments, we did calculate the height. It's 5 centimeters. I think. Thank you.
Okay. So, question from the world.
Can you show the picture of the circle? So the question to all three teams, why do you think there are darker region. For example, the middle picture, there are darker region of the circle, and there are lighter region. Why is there such a difference?
I mean, the circle there is darker. Because I think the ink can't spread too far as this, so they will be gathered in this circle, in this area.
And why isn't the gradient of the color smooth? Why is this such a big difference?
So you mean your ethnic paint is not smoothing?
Why does the color change so drastically? Why is it not smooth?
Finger?
Okay, maybe a question to the viewer.
So I think there will be two reasons. First is the cohesion of the mixture. So the ink will, because of cohesion, it will stay in the center. Well, there is still other ink will go out. And for the smooth color, I think it is because like I see from the reporter's experiment, I think the acrylic paint layer is really thick. So maybe the ink will stick to the wooden base.
And
I think I will agree with the reviewer.
Any other questions? Okay, no more questions. Secure the box. Ready? Okay, for the reporter, we have 4, 5, 5, 5, and 4. For the opponent, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7. 4, 5, 6, 6, 7. And for the reviewer, 5, 6, 7, 7, 9. Okay. Okay. Thanks, the bureau. So that concludes this stage of the fight. Thank you very much.